Next week is the final episode of No Game, No Life. It's sad to see that this series is coming very close to ending very soon, because it's already been 11 weeks since No Game, No Life first started airing, and it's been an enjoyable ride up to this point. I've had so much fun with it, and it's sad to see that next week will conclude Season 1, and we have no release date that there is going to be a Season 2 of No Game, No Life. Hopefully, No Game, No Life sells well, and we will eventually get to Season 2, because all my suspicions I've had in these past couple episodes about how the ending is going to be, most likely is going to happen. We're probably going to have a major cliffhanger after the end of this battle in this virtual reality world. So with this episode, we find out that the world they're in, Sora and Shiro are in, is a virtual reality world. It's not really Tokyo, Japan, or Akiba. It's actually just a virtual reality world that the War Beast made, and they called it the futuristic type map or zone. And so I find that very interesting how they take our world like Tokyo, Japan or something and say that's the futuristic like area, something you would see in a sci-fi game. And so that's hilarious if you think about it like that, because I mean, when we see a sci-fi game, we think of space and stuff like that, but their sci-fi game is equivalent to like our civilization. So it's enjoyable getting to see it from their perspective, and at the same time, it's really interesting how Sora and Shiro had to handle that entire moment of finding out that it was the virtual reality world, because if they would have decided to tell them that that was the real world, I think this entire episode would have played out rather differently. I mean, think about this. What if the War Beast would have known if Sora and Shiro were scared of real life? I mean, and what if they would have caught on to Sora and Shiro being completely terrified of even being in this world if it was real life? I mean, even if it was virtual reality, okay? What if, I mean, the War Beast were to lie to Sora and Shiro? I mean, they would probably be terrified and all scared, and all of a sudden you have Izana just, completely destroy them. And so, this entire episode could have ended differently, and it's weird if you think about it like that. I mean, it's really weird. So, the War Beast made a grave error in that entire decision of really telling the truth. But one thing, though, okay, one thing I will say, this episode was good. It was a very good episode. The animation was good, loved the freaking music, I loved the tactics, I love getting to see the gameplay elements in this, and I love the cliffhanger. I hate cliffhangers, yes, but that cliffhanger was freaking amazing. You have Izana just, transform into a War Beast, her entire outfit changes, her face changes, I'm like, holy hell, and then it just ends. It ends, the final cliffhanger of this season, and just, oh man, you freaking see her transform, she's going all in, she's like, I'm having fun, and then the episode ends right there, and I'm like, shit, but still, that build up to that moment, also the course of this entire episode, was just really good. It progressed great. Now, in the middle of this episode, I was thinking that maybe Shiro was acting, and most likely she was not hit by Uzana and wasn't her love slave or whatever, but we find out technically it was true. Shiro really didn't get hit. One of her clothing got hit, her pantsuit, and so she was acting the entire time to be an enemy to Sora, and so Sora figured this out, and then they turned the tide against Izana and attacked her. So that was a very interesting moment. It really was, and I like that a lot. I love how that was portrayed and shown, because it definitely was something that I expected, but the way it was done, it was just, I don't know, something about it, I was like, hell yes, when I saw it on the screen. Now, I love the action in this episode. The action, oh man, that action looks freaking beastly. I mean, okay, the entire skyscraper, well, they're falling down the skyscraper the first time, and you see them firing bullets at each other, like you see Uzana, and you also see Jibril, and then you see Shiro shooting bullets at each other. It just looks so fucking badass. Oh my god, that was just, it was so crazy. And then the funny comedy moments they managed to sneak in the middle of these scenes, like the serious scenes we had, they managed to force in some comedy that really worked in this episode. I think that's what makes No Game, No Life really flow properly, because it knows how to implement comedy along with serious moments. Like, for instance, right at this beginning, if you look at it, the beginning is just straight out comedy. But that comedy was actually development. It was actually development for the plot. I mean, okay, we get a lot of fans here, especially for Steph. For instance, Steph's getting shot constantly by Sora and Shiro and Jibril, and you see her clothes coming off, but it was to demonstrate the properties of this game, the elements of this game, what happens. For instance, your clothes are pretty much your shield, like your armor, and that's very fitting for a game. You'd think clothes would be some form of armor, so it blocks against bullets, and so it's interesting to see how they use that element, and they use the tie to that entire element of how clothes block the bullets, like the love bullets, in the ending part of this episode. And that's how Sora and Shiro were able to almost win at the end. Because at the end of this episode, nothing's completely concluded yet. Nobody really knows the true victor. But I'm going to take a quick guess and just going to say this right now. Most likely Sora and Shiro will win this. Next episode is the final one. So if they want to, they could let them win it. But at the same time, if they want to make a very climactic ending, what would be really shocking is having them lose, and all of humanity becomes slaves. For instance, they lose all the rights to participate in this game, and it would cause a very dark cliffhanger that could possibly lead into a Season 2. That's also a possibility if you think about that. Because, I mean, what if Blank was to lose right here, okay? Next episode, Blank loses. And all of a sudden, the episode's about to end like 5 minutes later and all that, but, I mean, humanity loses, they lost all rights to participate, and then they become slaves to all these other races, and they could be threatened or killed. Think about that real quick, okay? I mean, wouldn't that be a very epic fucking cliffhanger? I mean, everybody would rage and be pissed off. I know I would too, but it would be a dark cliffhanger if that was to happen. But like I said, I highly doubt that's going to happen. Most likely Sora and Shiro will win next episode, and then most likely it's going to live on a very heart-touching cliffhanger. But let's get off the factor of next episode. Let's talk more about this episode. So this episode had a lot of good comedy to it. For instance, the entire scene with how Shiro was freaking out. She's like, just like, oh my god, she was having a fucking spasm. I love No Game No Life so much when it does that. I mean, when you see Sword Shiro, but Shiro is one of those characters in this series that is just so creepy. She looks like something in a horror film. The way she's like twitching like this, and you see her like black and white. It's so creepy. It's so fucking creepy. I mean, seriously, the way her head tilts and all that, it's just something you would see in a scary movie. I love that so much. It's just so freaking funny. Oh yes, I want to bring up something before I forget it. I don't know if a lot of people realize this, but I noticed a reference. Now, No Game No Life is notorious for doing references each episode. It's had JoJo, it's had Dragon Ball Z, it's had Sailor Moon, it's had all sorts of different shows, but there's something they brought up in this episode I did not expect. They brought up a Steins Gate reference. They had Kurisu's face marked off, but she was doing her, like, signature pose, like her mad scientist pose and all that, and you clearly see it was Kurisu. It had the same outfit in everything, but her face was covered, but that was fucking Kurisu. So there was a Steins Gate reference in this episode, and 10 points to No Game No Life for even putting in a Steins Gate reference. So overall, this episode was enjoyable. I like it a lot. I like how they managed to slip in that comedy and keep serious tones while developing the overall series. Now, honestly, with this episode, the main moral of this episode, if you look at it, pretty much Izana just figuring out that games can be fun, don't take them too seriously, and have fun while you're done playing. At the same time, that's something I brought up in my last review. I pretty much said most likely the downfall of Izana is going to be most likely her having too much fun with the game, and Sora and Shiro are going to beat her. That's exactly why I see the downfall of this, but at the same time, it's good to see that she's learning as a person to enjoy games instead of just taking them too seriously and not having fun at all. So, I love this episode, No Game No Life. Tell me your thoughts in the comments below, how you felt about this episode of No Game No Life, everybody. What was your favorite moment? What did you feel about the development at the end? What did you feel about that cliffhanger? What did you feel about that Jibril, like, scary, dark moment to when she was about to freaking just destroy the little lolly girl? Let me know in the comments below. I love you all so much. Please be safe. Chibi out.